This video is about hypocrisy, irony, implacability, massive power and influence. It's about the inaccessibility of justice. This video is about George Pell. Earlier this year, George Pell was convicted on 5 charges of child sex abuse, dating back to his time when he was Archbishop of Melbourne in 1996. And what's concerning about the finding is the response and the incredulity of George Pell's supporters, which include 2 former Conservative Prime Ministers and heavy hitters in the right-wing media. They virtually refuse to accept the finding of the court, and they refuse, even with a louder voice, to accept the finding of the appeals court. But when the rest of us have to deal with the legal system and charges, and we accuse our accusers of trumping up charges and carrying out injustices, we're told by the Conservative media that it's our job to accept the justice that's dealt out, whether it's fair or not. And this is in stark contrast to what the same former politicians and Conservative commentariat tell the normal everyday Australian how to react when justice goes against them. And that is something like this: for society to hang together, we must all observe the law. No one is above the law. That's one of the favourite phrases of the Conservative commentariat. We're all equal in front of the law. Well, that's true as long as you're not the Archbishop of Melbourne or a current cardinal in the Vatican. This is the problem with the Cardinal George Pell case as I see it. It speaks to hypocrisy, but it also speaks to the massive influence that some people in society has and the inaccessibility of justice for the average ordinary person that wants to have their case heard and heard fairly. He has the opportunity to appeal to the appeals court. He has the opportunity to go to the High Court. The average Australian doesn't have that. The average Australian can't appeal decisions that are unjust because it's just simply too expensive. Most Australians buy the lawyer that they can afford. The financially disadvantaged, the socially disadvantaged, they often get the lawyer that the court appoints, or a legal aid lawyer who are so overwhelmed and under-resourced they've barely got time to prepare an adequate case to represent their client in time for the court case. But if you're George Pell from the Catholic Church, this is the organisation that purports to stand by and support and advocate for the financially and socially disadvantaged. If you're a senior Catholic in Australia, you can marshal all the resources at your disposal and get to an appeals court and all the way to the High Court. And this is the hypocrisy and the duplicity of it. Most Australians realise that to live in a decent, respectful and cohesive society, we all need to respect the law and we all need to accept the decision of the courts, whether we like it or not. And we don't have the resources to appeal to appeal courts and to the High Court. We just have to resolve the injustice within ourselves and move on with our lives. But in Australia, justice is available to all as long as you have money and influence. This is the irony. It defies explanation. And the righteous indignation of the George Pell cheerleaders in the media, the way they come out and say, well, the court's got it wrong. Maybe the court's got it wrong, but when the courts get it wrong for the average Australian, you don't hear a peep. And in fact, The average Australian is told, will accept the decision of the courts. That's what we need to do to have a cohesive society, except when you've got influence, power, and obviously access to money. This is Australian justice in 2019.
Forever young, or am I faking? On the tip of my tongue, there's a sarcasm waiting for you.